Sebastian Temesi from Fight Academy Queensland came down.
Yes, yeah.
This is a rematch against Dan Currie. Fought before a couple of years ago. Pretty tight fight, but Temesi took it just due to better strikes. Currie was a little bit obvious. Kept on coming for the takedown. Should have maybe changed it up a little bit. Maybe some chain wrestling and different types of takedown. Maybe from the clinch. I don't know. Currie always comes forward. Similar kind of game plan. Sebastian Temesi picked him apart. Beautiful jab.
Yeah.
And blood hit the canvas.
That was incredible.
We talked about the blood.
We talked about the blood, the smell. Yeah.
The smell was intense. Yeah. What do you say about that, man?
I would say it was visually one of the most spectacular fights I've ever seen in person. And for anybody watching online, they missed out on the smell of blood. It was, if you were within a couple of metres of that cage, it was unmistakable.
You know, the weird thing about the blood for me is like, I don't know if I should be glorifying it or if I should be pretending it's not happening.
Glorify it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I love
Well,
man, I love the brutality of it. If you're going in that cage, if you're stepping foot in that cage to fight, you're going to fight. Like, I hate the...
I don't think it's so much about the blood. I think it's more about the athlete that's still standing in spite of the blood. You know,
Yes.
it's like the blood, for all that it's there, it was really just this superficial thing that was not telling the full story of that fight. And the full story of the fight was that it went the distance, even though most fighters after that first round would have gone down and stayed down and would not have been able to breathe through that nose for the rest of the fight. But he stood, he breathed well, his cardio was exceptional to be able to breathe like that through the mouth for the entirety of the fight and still keep your rhythm and to still remain braced the whole time was just
competitive as well.
It was absolutely amazing. It
was not a winning performance, but it was a fucking performance.
Yeah,
wasn't
absolutely.
it? Wasn't it?
Shows
It wasn't the performance of a loser.
No, that's right.
So that it wasn't a winning performance, but it wasn't it was the performance of a winner. It was somebody who was winning in the moment because he was able to get to the next moment, and it wasn't a game plan as much as I'm just going to keep getting through and keep create. This was the other thing. He kept creating opportunities. Yeah. You know,
Keep coming back. What are you doing, man? Run away.
And there's an overhand right, and any of them could have landed. And, you know, it could have been one of those shock moments where all of a sudden one of those connected and it was all over. And at that point, it wouldn't even have been a surprise. You know, it would have just been, well, the fight was going that way. And then And it was, so it was a tremendous battle.
Did you talk to him after at all? Or did I would have liked to have heard like how Manly was affecting him, or did he just say, "I'm going to put this in the back of my mind and walk forwards no matter what"? Or
I didn't talk to him. I talked to his coach. I just felt for him, man. Like he's got to go home. He's a real person at the end of the day. At the end of that fight, and they love. You know, there's always huge amounts of love with your fighters, of course. They're like a brotherhood, and he was. As you'd expect, Matt, from ISO Health to be, as per usual, just a legend, just real humble and thankful that... How's this? His major comment and his main point was, we're really grateful that we got to fight. And like, what? You animal, like, you know, he's like, hey, yeah, he's okay. He's going to recover. He's going to be fine. And, you know, wow, like just... It was brutal, brutal. You really felt for Currie. He had a huge cart going across the bridge, wasn't it? That was, I think, the big bleeder. But then I think the eyes opened up as well. I don't know if you could see, man.
It was really hard it was really hard to see for the blood where the blood was coming from. Like watching it live, I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell. I assumed that his nose had got busted open.
Yeah. I would have liked for Iska to have stepped in and just done a little, not a complete stoppage, but given him a minute with the doctor to come in just to wipe his face and ask him. They do this a lot of the time, to have a little conversation, but to make sure he's okay and make sure he's safe, and also give him a little bit of recovery time while they wipe his face. So, you okay to continue? You all good? Okay, fight, continue. Just to give him that 30 seconds, just to make sure he's okay. Also gives that chance for the coach to really rethink, is this okay? Should I be stepping in as well? Tough call for Matt. I don't blame him for not throwing in the white towel, but I'm sure he was thinking about it.
I think there's always that question that if you bring the doctor in, it's going to stop. And for the athlete's point of view, it looks really bad for the judges. Like, you know, if you're like, they had to bring the doctor in for me. Now the judges are going to be like, you're getting beaten so bad that the doctor had to check you out.
I think in this case, the fighter's enthusiasm was what made the difference. You know, the fighter,
body language.
Yeah, he didn't step back. He if you could take the blood out of the equation, there was nothing wrong with that fight.
I still keep poker face to the death.
I mean, there was not one.
He jabbed me in the nose, just on the nose.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to cry. And I'm going to show you some pain that I'm feeling. It's very hard not to.
Yeah, he didn't wince once, did he? Like, that was just an incredible display of toughness.
He copped at one point. He got turned around a little bit. I think he copped something, and it pushed his head down. And then Temesi came with a high kick, landed it flush. I think that's what did it on the nose.
Right, yeah.
The cleanest head kick to a guy who was literally coming forward to it with his head down. Head kick straight into the nose. It was brutal. At that point, I thought it was over, but no, it just begun.
Yeah, yeah.
And in that moment, like, the crowd erupts, and it must be hard for the athletes to understand what's going on, because you've just been belted and then you've got this noise. And is that me thinking? Is this me going out? Is this what's going on? Because there's the sensory overload to the brain at that point. And that's why, you know, a lot of the fighters that may have had endured a loss early on in their career, and they're now, after a few more fights, much more seasons, much more comfortable in the ring, because they're used to that noise. And and maybe something that fighters that have come out of the last couple of years with not a lot of fights under their belt because of COVID and the whole range of of reasons that are out there at the moment, are at a disadvantage at an international level, because fighting, there's no comparison to fighting in front of a big crowd when the noise takes over and you can't hear yourself think. In a moment where you really need to be present more than ever.
I think, and Joe Brown was representative of this as well. From February fight, he wasn't able to hear his coach.
Wow.
He went 3 rounds, couldn't hear Ike, and Ike's yelling, really frustrated, yelling and screaming. You're thinking, surely he can hear me, but I think it's exactly as you said. There's so much going on. The guy wanting to kill you, to focus on this and be calm in that moment. And Joe Brown this time, I think Ike actually said and chatted about it later. Man, in the back room after the fight, he said, your ability to listen and be composed in this one, 100% improvement for your last one. That's why you won.
Wow.
So that's what Ike said.